This Genesis and Impact Wrestling review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Try it. It cures cancer.
That's it. That's it. Oh, I've got you this time, you son of a bitch.
TNA. The paradigm has changed, alright? You're only holding 4 real pay-per-views a year now. You can't keep treating them like this. I thought the point of cutting down to 4 shows was so you could make a bigger deal out of them. Maybe some allowance can be made for Genesis because this show was laid out before all that kicked in, but still, you're not off to a great start here. So the opening match is Los Stereotypicos defending the tag team titles against Morgan and the Organ. I wasn't expecting much out of this one. I was just hoping it would be serviceable and that the faces would lose. And the match was serviceable, up until the end where it looked like Hernandez killed Joey Ryan with that sloppy powerbomb. Seriously, fuck Hernandez. But I can't see any reason to keep the belts on Chavo and Hernandez any longer. I can't. They're the least relevant, least interesting tag team on this show right now. The writers are obviously bored with them. Bad Influence have since been pushed ahead of them up the card, and yet these jokers are still parading around with the tag team titles. What is the point?
You guys suck.
Man, it didn't take long for TNA to drop the ball with Matt Morgan again, did it? He comes back, he says he's going to plow through everyone to get to the world title, and then instead of pursuing the world title, he gets put in a tag team that fails to win the tag titles on several occasions and is already teasing a breakup. TNA, why did you even bring this guy back if this was all you were going to do with him? Look, I'm not saying 100% that Matt Morgan would work as a top star and a world champion. I don't know that for sure. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But it's time to shit or get off the pot with this guy. Either pull the trigger on him or just cut him loose. Because I'm tired of hearing Matt Morgan say that he's going to be the world champion only to watch him get lost in the mid-card over and over and over again. If you were going to do Samoa Joe versus Ken Anderson, why wouldn't you announce it on Impact prior to the pay-per-view? And just throwing it out there like this, so most people probably don't even know the match is happening, isn't going to get you any extra buys. I think you know that. The match is passable. Anderson wins when Mike Knox distracts Joe, so holy shit, the Aces and Eights actually won a match for a change. And if this had happened 2 months ago, that might have meant something, but it's basically too little too late at this point. The Aces and Eights get a rare win. Good for them, but I just don't care. Kenny King versus Christian York. York has been a little inconsistent since TNA brought him in, but he was good here. Of course, Kenny King was his normal awesome self, and the match was solid. Really surprised to see York get the pin, but they used it to make Kenny King's heel turn official, so I was okay with it. The following match with Van Dam wasn't much to write home about, though, because it was really just about York selling the attack from Kenny and putting over York's toughness. And the point of this, I guess, was to transition into a 3-way feud for the X title. That was done nicely enough. But TNA seemed to be higher on Christian York than I am right now. He's not a bad talent, but I don't see him as much more than a utility player. And he certainly doesn't have the X factor that Kenny King showed here. I mean, I'd rather see Zema Ion in this spot, to be honest. But I do appreciate that they're changing up the formula with the title feud, so I can roll with this for a while. Joseph Park versus Devon. All I have to say to this is God bless Joseph Park for making me give a shit about the Aces and Eights for a few minutes. Was this a good match? No. But it wasn't supposed to be. Joseph has no experience, so the real intrigue here was in the story. And it told a really good story, with Joseph not really knowing what he was doing and being completely out of his depth, but getting the occasional hope spots and being totally amazed with himself when he did something right. And the crowd went nuts for it. That was awesome. And he didn't win, but the brilliance of the Joseph Park character is that he doesn't have to win. He just has to put up a fight. And as long as he can do that, the fans rally behind him. I mean, honestly, even though I couldn't care less about Devon right now, I thought this was one of the most enjoyable segments of the night just because of Joseph Park's performance. Then we had our knockout gauntlet match for the #1 contendership, and we've probably seen better from the knockouts recently. This was alright when ODB and Velvet Sky weren't involved, but it was pretty forgettable. Velvet wins the title shot, which I don't think came as a shock to anybody, but the booking here was really hard to swallow. Gail Kim did everything. She carried the whole match, defeats 3 former champions in a row, just so she can be fed to Velvet Sky? Really?
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
Velvet comes in last, does virtually nothing, doesn't even break a sweat, and gets the win with Gail's foot under the rope. That would have been okay if the heel face rolls had been reversed, but if the point of this was to make Velvet look strong, then they failed. Badly. And the really frustrating thing about that is that this is really the only way you can book Velvet Sky if you want to push her. You have to book around her. You know, have people like Gail do all the heavy lifting and have Velvet do as little as possible, because the more you give her to do, the more you're going to expose her as just being not that good. That being said, TNA, please get this title shot out of the way before lockdown. I don't want to see another Velvet Sky cage match. I don't think anyone wants to see that.
Destination? Horror.
James Storm versus Christopher Daniels for the #1 contendership to the World Heavyweight title. And yes, it's a pay-per-view match used to hype a bigger match that will happen on free TV. Why? Because it's TNA. And even though they're only doing 4 pay-per-views a year now, they apparently still have no problem with throwing them under the bus in favor of the TV show. A pretty good match between these two, but wow. By interference or not, I was stunned. Stunned when Daniels got the win here. Did not see that one coming. And I don't believe for a second that he'll actually win the world title. But you know what? Daniels has been one of the most entertaining things about this product for months. He deserves this, and I'm happy for him, goddammit. Yes! Unfortunately, the downside here is that this came at the expense of James Storm, who it seems like TNA has dropped the ball on at every turn since Bound for Glory. I have no earthly clue what their plan is for James Storm right now, but they need to get a new plan for James Storm because their plan for James Storm sucks.
This whole show is ridiculous!
Even though they're both still suspended as far as I know, Bully Ray and Brooke Hogan came out to remind everyone that they're getting married on iMPACT Thursday. Basically just an unnecessary commercial for the TV show. TNA, you threw Genesis under the bus on the Go Home show to put this angle over. It's not like we don't know it's happening. Did you really need to do this? And when you add this segment to the unannounced Anderson-Joe match, this pay-per-view is getting really crowded. But at least TNA compensated pretty well by keeping the semi-main event really short. A very smart decision, all things considered, because the semi-main event sucked. Oh my god. I don't know what brain trust thought it was a good idea to put Sting versus Doc in this spot, but I hope you're kicking yourself now, whoever you are. Worst match of the night by a mile. Sting has very little left in the tank at this point, and Doc, I'm sorry, but he's just not that good. I don't understand what TNA see in this guy. I really don't. He's lousy. This match was lousy. Sting wins in about 5 minutes, which was 5 minutes too long in my opinion, and I wasn't even upset about Sting going over another young guy because I don't see anything in Doc whatsoever right now, so you might as well have Sting given the jobber treatment. Then Bully Ray chases off the Aces and Eights before they can attack, so they're definitely teasing that again. Don't be surprised if he's revealed to be one of the members come Thursday. Oh god, I hope they've got something less predictable than that in store for us. Jeff Hardy, Bobby Roode, and Austin Aries for the world title. And apparently this was an elimination match. I don't know when the hell that stipulation was announced, but I completely missed it. Anyway, I think TNA missed a golden opportunity here by not doing this match at Final Resolution instead. Think about this for a second. You had Hardy, who'd never been able to beat Rude for the title, Aries, who'd never been able to beat Hardy for the title, and Rude, who'd never been able to beat Aries for the title. Think of the story you could have told with that. But they never went for it. They lost their chance to do it, and the match didn't mean as much as it would have if they'd gone that way. But it was a very good main event. We knew it would be with these three guys. There just wasn't any suspense. You knew there'd be no title change here, because number one, it was clear this was a filler pay-per-view, and number two, the heels had never looked like serious threats to Hardy in the build-up to this, because TNA want Hardy to re-sign so bad they've been kissing his ass every chance they get and booking him like he's fucking Super Cena. It was a rock-solid main event. It was, but it really felt like they were just spinning their wheels here. And that's a good way to sum up this whole pay-per-view, really. There were some things I liked, but for the most part it felt pretty skippable because nothing of any real consequence happened. I got the impression that they were just killing time until Impact started, so let's just move on to that show now so we can find out what the big deal is. Alright, TNA, you got me. Sure as hell didn't see that one coming. So, thumbs up for shock value. As for the rest... wow. Alright, let's just start at the beginning. Bad Influence are a welcome interruption to the Jeff Hardy promo that opened the show, because the Thursday Night Delight and Chasmania are running wild on Impact now, brother! I don't know how the hell they did it, but they took a segment that involved Jeff Hardy holding a live mic and made it entertaining. I swear, Bad Influence are on fire right now. James Storm shows up to even the odds. It becomes a tag team match pretty quickly. The match is really good. The faces win. I'm assuming Hardy hasn't re-signed yet, so we have to expect TNA to continue sucking up to him for a while longer. Something I noticed, though. Bad Influence may do a lot of jobs, but the losses never seem to hurt them. And you could have them lose like 10, 20 matches in a row, and then put them right back in a prominent spot, and the fans still seem to buy into it. They're that effective. And they took another loss here, which I didn't like, but they got over on Hardy post-match, put some heat on Daniels before his title match next week, and Daniels didn't want Hardy's custom belt either. Oh man, that never gets old. So, even though the heels lost again, it still felt like an effective segment, and Bad Influence can do no wrong right now. I mean, no joke, I'd seriously put them right up there with Austin Aries as the best heels in the company at this point. Jay Bradley won the gut check, so he gets the contract. I agree with this. I thought Brian Cage was very good too. Either one of them would have been fine choices in my opinion, but Bradley just stood out to me a little bit more in the match. I liked his look better, I liked his interview better. Seems like a pretty natural heel. I mean, hell, after just 2 appearances, he's already generating more heel heat than Doc is. So, if only one of them could get the contract, I think Bradley was the right call. Kenny King and Christian York had a rematch from the pay-per-view. The match was pretty short and kind of clunky. It seemed like they were having some trouble getting in sync for some reason. But, hey, Kenny King won. That's enough to make me happy. Looks like they're establishing him as the new top heel in the X Division, which is a great move. And I think it's kind of funny here how, of the 3 guys that are circling the X title right now, nearly all the focus is on the 2 challengers, and almost none of it is on the champion. Now, under other circumstances, I'd have a problem with this, but you know what? When the champion is Bob Van Dam, I got no problem with it.
Yes! 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 Yes!
Gail Kim versus Velvet Sky, with Velvet's #1 contendership on the line. I really liked how this came about, with Gail looking at the match footage from Genesis and pointing out how the ref made a bad call and using that to get this match. It sounds like the simplest thing in the world, but this was great because it showed that the wrestlers are actually watching the product and paying attention to stuff like this. It's a small detail, but it's smart, and it makes sense that the wrestlers would take advantage of being able to watch the show back like that. This rarely happens at WWE. A lot of the time, you'll see things happen and the wrestlers are completely oblivious to it because apparently none of them actually watch the damn show, so they don't see it happening and therefore don't know about it. That's stupid. So even though it might not seem like anything to the casual viewer, I really liked how TNA did this. The match, however... Gail did the best she could here, but there really isn't a whole lot you can do with Velvet. I mean, at any given time, it's very obvious, you're very aware that Velvet is just completely outclassed in terms of skill level, athleticism, crispness in the ring, and that terrible botched neckbreaker spot did not help her case. My God, that was awful. You know how I keep saying that Velvet should be in a non-wrestling role? Stuff like that is why. But of course, Velvet wins, and Gail is not happy with Taryn Terrell. I wonder if this might be the start of Taryn transitioning over to being a wrestler. Based on what I saw from her in OVW recently, I'm not in a big hurry for that to happen. Just saying. Austin Aries and Bobby Roode. Oh my God, Austin Aries and Bobby Roode. I love this segment so much. They cut this promo about how they carried the company on their backs all last year and have since been dropped by the wayside in favor of Jeff Hardy, which does have a ring of truth to it. But then it gets even better because it segues into them explaining how TNA is living 10 years in the past with all these outdated, irrelevant champions from a previous era. Bob Van Dam, Devon, Chavo Guerrero, every word of this the God-honest truth, and it was glorious. This was everything we've been complaining about for months now, and Aries has taken TNA to task for it. It's like the writers decided to take something the smart marks have been screaming at them for and make an angle out of it. I love that. And this is why so many people say that Austin Aries is the CM Punk of TNA, because he's the guy who always seems to be pointing out stuff like this. And then, holy shit, the cherry on the cake. Just when I and a whole bunch of other people were saying on Twitter that Aries and Roode need to be a tag team, Los Stereotypicos come out to object to what they're saying. And Chavo proceeds to make the heels point for them by stumbling over his words, getting completely shamed on the microphone. Then they fight, and it looks like this will be a tag team feud now. Yes, do it. As much as Dixie Carter might be high on Chavo and Hernandez for some ungodly reason, there is no way, no fucking way those guys are going over Aries and Roode. Make it happen, Pritchard. Austin Aries, Bobby Roode, the wet dream team, next TNA Tag Team Champions. Book it right fucking now.
Yes! 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 Yes!
So how about that wedding angle? This is going to be a pretty polarizing topic, and my opinion, I think this was a really questionable idea that was saved by uncharacteristically brilliant execution. Now, yeah, you can bitch about how they built the whole show around this, it was Hogan overload, blah, 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 and believe me, I didn't like it any more than you did. But for a big angle like this, you need to devote a lot of attention to it, otherwise it comes off half-assed, which is something that TNA have been guilty of many, many times over the years. Actually, to be honest, I was impressed with how well this came off. I mean, they have multiple segments hype it up. They go through all the Hogan-Brooke melodrama and have them make up at the end. So they go through a journey there, which would have made the wedding all the more satisfying for casual viewers because of what the characters had to go through to get to it. The set looked really good, they didn't skimp on the production, and they focused on the whole story about Hogan finally accepting Bully Ray for the love of his daughter, while at the same time taking care to not once show or even mention the Aces and Eights. It was all misdirection, and I thought this was done very, very well. I mean, hell, I thought for sure Bully was going to turn here, but then they zigged when I thought they were going to zag, and there's this big brawl that culminates with Brooke's boobs popping out. And I gotta give it to TNA this time. This was pretty damn shocking. And unlike the Devon reveal a few months ago, it feels like they earned this one. So the execution of the swerve itself I thought was tremendous, and it saved this angle from being the utter train wreck I was expecting. Well done on that, TNA. But then you look at this more closely, you start to pick it apart, and that's when the cracks start forming. So you're telling me that all this buildup was to the reveal of Taz being in league with the Aces and Eights?
What the fuck?
So the Aces and Eights, a heel stable that had been completely floundering for months, that was in desperate need of, number one, credibility, and number two, star power, has gained a color commentator. Maybe there's something I'm not getting just yet, but I fail to see how this helps them. Taz might be a more effective mouthpiece than Devon, but that wasn't the real problem. The problem with the Aces and Eights was that the lineup sucked and they were booked like jobbers. So now you put Taz in there, who can't wrestle anymore, who can't do anything except talk, and some people could argue that he can't even do that well these days, and I just don't see what the Aces and Eights gain from this. Plus, for weeks now, you've had the Aces and Eights beating us over the head about how anonymity is power and don't lose your mask no matter what. And then Taz voluntarily reveals his involvement with the group, giving up his anonymity for seemingly no reason.
Plot hole!
I don't know where they can go with this. I don't see a lot of mileage in it. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until I see what they do with it, but I gotta say, I'm really struggling to make sense of it right now.
Then allow me to enlighten you. Exhibit A. This secret bank account in your name, full of money that you kept hidden from the whole world for mysterious reasons. Exhibit B. This bank statement recording the withdrawal of a large sum of money from said bank account on the same date that the Aces and Eights were supposedly paid off by your shill Austin Aries. It was you. That money came from you. The Aces and Eights came from you. This whole pointless go-nowhere angle came from you, and this proves it!
That doesn't prove shit.
It doesn't? Really? Well, what's your pathetic alibi this time, huh? What were you up there fixing the roof again when the withdrawal was made? Or maybe you gave the money to some starving third world children out of the goodness of your heart. This should be really good. I'm on pins and needles here. Come on. Spill it.
You want to know what I spent that money on? Look at that receipt right there.
What? What's this? Oh, please. This is obviously just some stupid Adobe After Effects.
Yeah, I bought some software. If you'll notice, the date of the purchase corresponds to the date of the withdrawal made from the account.
You think this changes anything? You think you've won? Well, you haven't. I knew you were the leader of the Aces and Eights before anyone else did. Long before certain dumbass bandwagon jumpers started catching on. You may have covered your tracks this time, but that's not gonna stop me. Because while you were distracting me with this red herring, your pathetic little enterprise has been falling apart at the seams. Nox, Taz, and that's just in the last few weeks. That anonymity that supposedly gives you power won't last much longer. So the way I see it, maybe I don't even have to expose you. Maybe I just have to sit back and watch as your incompetence does the work for me. Because you are the leader of the Aces and Eights. You've always been the leader! And you will be exposed! Count on it!